Hello, everybody. Welcome back to One Autistic Person. I hope everyone's okay. So I will apologise today. I'm having some real executive functioning issues, and I have come to do this video about 5 or 6 times and not being able to do it. So I'm hoping this time will work. This one's a little bit different. So it's looking at the autism quotient test, which is on Embrace Autism. It's one of the, I am going to say quite a lot. I apologise. I just, like I say, my executive function is quite bad at the moment. My mind's wandering quite a bit, and I'm being a bit driven by ADHD. So I'm hoping that I'll get through it. I want the videos to be a bit clunky if they're going to truly show me as an autistic person. So I have to deal with that, I suppose. And I'm determined to make sure these videos come out regularly. So yeah, we'll be doing it a little bit differently. I'm going to be doing like I say, the autism quotient test, which is part of the assessment that's usually done for autism. It was one of the ones that was used for my initial screening. So I am going to do a series of videos that do these tests, because I think it's really good, one, to sort of go through it, and if people want to go through it with somebody talking through it, but I also think it's good for you, if you are thinking of getting an autism assessment, to look through these beforehand and maybe look at it from a perspective of sort of talking to your family and talking through them, maybe get them to do the test so that you can just talk about your results and how things are affecting you. I found that these opened my mind up a lot more to sort of asking questions for myself. I'd watched a lot of YouTube videos and things like that prior to this, but these questionnaires really made me look internally at maybe how things were. Also, as I pointed out in the previous video that I did, some of these questions don't really give context and should have context, or really don't make any sense whatsoever. So I think sometimes having that talk through, and sort of, I wanted to sort of say what I had put my context to in the answering of those questions, because I think sometimes it's quite difficult to put that context in place. So I'm hoping that it helps somebody. If it just helps one person, then great, because this process is quite difficult. And there's a lot of self-realization that goes on with these tests. So I think it's a really good idea to go through all of these tests before you have your autism assessment. I mean, I think I went through mine at least 5 or 6 times for each one of the questionnaires, and it was where I really truly sort of answered those questions for myself and was like, yes, I really do believe that I'm potentially autistic. So without further ado, I'm going to do a little bit of, see whether I can do a little bit of editing magic. And I'm going to make myself small in the corner, and then that will also mean that we can see the test as we're going through it. So let's see whether I can do that. So hopefully that has worked. So as you can see, this is the autism spectrum quotient. It is an official diagnostic pre-screening test that is often used to allow assessors to see whether they feel that you should move on to the next stage of testing. So I believe any score over 30 at the end of this would lead assessors to believe you should move on to further assessments. This is also part of a wider diagnostic pre-screening with lots of different questionnaires that you might use. So again, if you score below 30 on this, I don't think it would automatically mean, oh, well, you'll not have an assessment. There may be other things, especially if you have a CAT-Q, which looks at things like camouflaging, masking, and also the empathy quotient. So, but I think especially around the camouflaging / masking one, which I will do in a later video. So there's 50 questions in total, so I'll try and get through them as quickly as possible, but I know I'm probably likely to monologue as we go ahead with this. So I'm going to answer these how I feel I should answer them, but I want to kind of give any context that I felt when I was answering these questions, what it means, because sometimes there's sort of conflicting answers to it. So I'm just going to say how I answered it and what I was thinking when I answered it. So question 1, I prefer to do things with others rather than on my own. So the answers are A, definitely agree, B, slightly agree, C, slightly disagree, or D, definitely disagree. So that's the last time I'll go through those, but they're the 4 answers for everything. So they're 4 multiple choice answers. So I prefer to do things with others rather than on my own. For me, absolutely. I feel that just generally in life, I'd rather do things on my own. it doesn't mean I don't enjoy spending time with other people, because I do, kind of. But I get a lot from other people in short doses, but for long periods of time, for days and days on end, I can do things on my own, and I'd much rather do things on my own. And especially if it's something complex, if it's a complex task, I'd like to do it myself. So I would say I definitely disagree. Definitely disagree to that. Sorry. That's the other thing with these questions. They're quite difficult because sometimes you have to read them over and over again to make sure you're giving the right answer. And I kept thinking I was giving the wrong answer. So I prefer to do things with others rather than my own. Definitely disagree to that. Absolutely not. If I can do something myself, I will do it myself. So 2, I prefer to do things the same way over and over again. For me, absolutely. Yeah, I do. I don't have a huge issue necessarily with change at work and things like that. If I can understand the reason for change, and I don't mind making small changes to things if I know the benefit of doing so. But there are many things that I will do exactly the same, and I really struggle to do anything outside of it. And that even comes down to if I'm watching something. Sometimes I might not watch a TV series in order. I might watch it in sort of separate stories that I've said to myself, these are better stories, I like these stories to be told. So if there's stories within stories, I'll sometimes watch that, and I struggle to then watch the series as is, because I prefer to watch them in those ways. But it also comes down to things like cooking, and because I struggle quite a lot with cooking, so I really have to make sure I do things exactly the same way. There are so many things in life that I have to do things, and it's like, if I miss something when I'm driving, I get very concerned the fact that I haven't followed the process. So yeah, definitely feel that I need to do things the same way over and over again. And it comes down to the same as sort of like even doing interviews. If I'm doing interviews, I feel like I have to interview people exactly the same way each time, and I can get very upset from it. So I would definitely agree with that. If I try to imagine something, I find it very easy to create a picture in my mind. Now, this one was a really complicated one for me. So I mean, I come to the conclusion I slightly disagree with this. So I can put a picture in my mind of something, as in a physical picture, so I can see what something looks like. But I'm much more likely to see it as a document in my head, I suppose, as in like words, groups of things, groups of words that are describing something, rather than an actual picture. So the word picture in this meant to me that I have a visual thought process. I do have a visual thought process if it's something that is physically there, or I'm creating something. I like things to be very visual, but in my actual mind, I would say slightly disagree with this, because I do struggle to build an actual picture, but I can have a linear thought process, story process, I suppose, but I do struggle to actually have a visual picture in my head. Question 4. I frequently get so strongly absorbed in one thing that I lose sight of other things. I lose sight, I lose hearing, I lose feeling of everything around me until I'm back out of it. Absolutely. So this is, to me, an absolute, that if I'm doing something for work, or I'm creating something, I'm documenting something, I'm writing something down, I can't hear anything around me apart from what is there, unless it's something loud and disruptive. But I can completely zone out, and I will completely be focused on things, so I can completely forget that everything else in the world exists. I'm absolutely focused on that thing, and it's so jarring when I'm pulled out of it by somebody interrupting it. I mean, I say loud things, sometimes it can be that it's quite a quiet thing that pulls me out of it, but and it's jarring to me. But yeah, I can completely lose all sense of everything around me. So I would definitely agree, especially if it's something that I really enjoy. So like when I'm playing The Sims, I can literally play The Sims for 20 hours and only have to go to the loo and maybe remember to drink a bit of water, and be so absorbed in it, I lose track of time. I can basically have been up until 4 o'clock in the morning and be starting work at 8, and I just haven't realised that. So yeah, definitely an issue, that one. I have to notice small sounds when others do not. Kind of touched on that previously. Yes, I do. sound sensory issues. I mean, I with my autism does kind of attack all of my senses. I don't have one where it's more apparent to me. It's more of a problem for me. It with everything for me, I'm light sensitive, but sound sensitivity, definitely. I hear very small little things and I need to know what that thing is. It's like I've just heard something upstairs, which I think is probably a pipe, but now I'm thinking somebody's up there, and I go into a whole process with that. And I can hear my clock ticking, which is actually quite far away from me where I am at the moment. So yeah, I definitely agree. I often notice small sounds when others do not, and I'm always saying, what's that? What's that? What's that? I usually notice car number plates or similar strings of information. So this is question 6. Yes, I do. I like to, when I'm driving, or more, I suppose it does happen when I am driving, but obviously safely. But when I am, let's say I'm on a motorway and we're at a standstill, I will sit and make words out of the number plate. And also, I love the first thing I do straight away is I need to know what year that car was made. For no apparent reason, I have no interest in cars. I have no interest in cars as a sport. My car's there just to get me from A to B. I have no other. I love the fact my current car has a lot of technology in it, and I love that, and I love the fact that it's an eco-friendly car because it's an electric car. So I like all of those things, but I'm not really interested in cars. So it's nothing to do with that. And I do the same with other sort of strings of information. There are other things that I do that with. So I make links quite often between things that maybe other people don't. Or become more focused on it. Maybe that they do make that link, but I become more focused on it. So I would say definitely agree with that one. You will find, like this one, and I think this one is very much that, and you will find this throughout it, they are very male orientated questions, as in they're very much weighted towards, in my view, the stereotypical old thought process of that only boys have autism. So you have a lot of things around numbers and things like that. I'm hoping that when they do the DSM-5 that they look at doing a revision of this, because I think it's outdated. But as somebody who's quite stereotypically, in some ways, quite stereotypically male, not stereotypically male at all, but my autistic brain is quite male orientated in that thought process. I love numbers, I love sequences, I love engineering and design and things like that. So and I love building things. So that's how my autism does manifest for me. I just think it makes it a little bit difficult to maybe diagnose people who don't necessarily fall within that stereotype, and that could be men or women, or people who present as female or present as male. So it's a bit of a complication, I think, with the AQ. I think I sort of slid through it quite easily because I'm quite stereotypical, old school thought process with autism. So therefore, a lot of these I score quite highly on this, and I just think that people who deviate from the old thought process of how autism is could struggle a little bit with this. But I suppose that's what the CAQ, the camouflaging one is about. But yeah, it frustrates me because it's like this was quite easy for me to do, but I know people struggle with this quite a bit. I struggle with some of the context related questions later, but there are some that I just feel sorry for people who have to answer this and think, well, no, that's not me, and it doesn't mean you're not autistic. It really doesn't, because this is an outdated test. So other people frequently tell, this is question 7, other people frequently tell me that what I've said is impolite, even though I think it is polite. Now, this one was a really interesting one for me, because I very rarely have had anybody say that I think I'm impolite, apart from like my mum and the person that I live with, because I'm there all the time with them. But I don't really have many friends, and the only friends that I do have are neurodivergent, so they don't see me as rude necessarily or impolite. Now, I asked my boss, I asked a lot of people about my politeness and how I came across to other people, and I specifically asked this question because I originally said I slightly disagree, because I realised that there was there was certain times where that happened. In reality, it's definitely agreed, because it's just because they haven't told me that, it doesn't mean that's not what they were thinking. And as soon as I gave people permission to be able to be honest with me, I would say 95% of people came back and told me, yes, you can come across as being impolite, but we know you don't mean it. But I've never thought that I was. So the answer there for definite, for me, other people, for me, I kind of changed it to frequently tell me to frequently think that what I have said is impolite, even though I think it was polite, because I always have thought it's polite. That's why it shocked me so much when they said that. So I would definitely agree with that. Maybe worth asking that question of people if you've not really had that feedback. I mean, I had the feedback a lot when I was a kid, but I don't. But that obviously as an adult, things change. Question 8. When I'm reading a story, I can easily imagine what the characters might look like. No. So with this one, it's similar to the other question around a visualization that there was. I can create a profile in my head of that person, which may include a photograph, I suppose, but it kind of doesn't. It's more of I suppose, a police profile, or a character profile that you would create when writing a book or something like that. That I can see everything about that person, but I really struggle to be able to see what that person would look like in my head. So I don't really get annoyed. I know people get annoyed when people are cast in certain roles, and they don't feel that person represents the person that they've imagined in their head. I never really get that feeling. I know a lot of people felt it about certain people in Game of Thrones, and that they hadn't quite got the characters right, and it never mattered to me, because I hadn't built a picture up in my head. I built up a character, and as long as that character is filled out as a person, then I've not really even looked at what that character may look like. So so I would say definitely disagree to that, because I don't have any picture in my head really of what they are. I obviously know that they might have brown hair, they might have blue eyes, they might have olive coloured skin, whatever it is that's being described of them. I understand that they are things. I just don't see them as important parts of that person's character. I'm fascinated by dates. Yep. Again, being quite stereotypically male autistic profile. Yes, I am. There are certain things especially that I am fascinated with. So I love theme parks. Thought Park logo on my t-shirt. I love this t-shirt. It's so soft. And also has my favourite theme park on it. So I love theme parks, and I know when each roller coaster was installed at each one of especially at the Merlin sites, because they're kind of what my main obsessions are. But I also know like Pleasure Beach, and I know Drayton Manor. I know when all of those were installed, as well as many other things. But there's dates that I know. Then I know what dates those theme parks opened. But also I have a very in-depth interest into women in history who were executed, in my view, wrongly, due to public expectation of them, especially so people like Anne Boleyn over Marie Antoinette. So I know the dates of their executions. I mean, Anne Boleyn, I know a lot more about her. So I know when her arraignment date was to go to court, and I know when her original execution date was, when her second execution date was, when her marriage date was, and things like that. So yes, I have very specific things. I also know the year in which every single monarch, right from 1066 to now, took over the throne, so ascended to the throne, and their coronation date. So for that, just because I was obsessed with royalty when I was younger. So yeah, definitely fascinated by dates, and like I said with the car situation, I love to know, and I've only just actually made that connection with the car number plates, that I'm obsessed with the year that the car was made. So maybe that's a date obsession rather than the car obsession. So definitely agree to that. In a social group, I can easily keep track of several different people's conversations. No, definitely not. I struggle to keep a conversation with one person, especially if it's loud. I try to, but I just get very lost. So the answer is definitely no to that. Like I say, I can barely keep up one conversation, and if somebody interjects, then I have no idea what anybody's saying, and I just feel very lost in those situations. The only time that I can feel like that might be the case is if I've had a little bit of social lubricant. But that's not me. That's not the reality of me. That's me drinking alcohol. So I'm in the social group. So definitely disagree to that one. I find social situations easy. I think we've just answered that question with the previous one. No, I don't find them easy. I don't find them pleasant. I don't find them enjoyable. There's nothing about a social situation that I like. I feel I do benefit from them after I've been to them, as long as it's not for too long. But for me to go into any social situation, and this includes going to the shop, I need a prep time, the dealing with it, and a decompression time. That depends very much on what it is. The time periods of that can be anything from a few hours, from an hour, half an hour maybe, to a few days worth of prep if it's going to be a long period of time. So if I was going away for a weekend with people, I would need probably a day, 2 days to prep for it, and I could take a week to decompress from that. Whereas going to the shop, I probably can do it with it. I can probably get prep for it within half an hour. If I really needed to. Usually it would take me 2 or 3 hours to be able to prep and get my sort of self through going, you need to go to the shop, you need to go to the shop, what's going to happen. I think I've mentioned already in other videos, I do have social anxiety, so that is added onto it there. And then the decompression takes longer than the prepping. So if it took me an hour to get ready to go to Tesco, then it could take me 3 hours to decompress after it. So it's a big process for me going out. So yeah, and any social situation is like that. Work, if I have to go out, because I work from home most of the time, but if I have to go out for let's say 2 days, I'll make sure that they're together at the end of the week, and then I will because I don't work Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I'll decompress over the weekend, and then the Monday I'll be able to start getting back to normal again. So that was a big no. I tend to notice details that others do not. Totally, we've kind of already covered this in other things, but yeah, I notice small details in things all the time. I'm one of the people who picks out continuity issues within TV programs. If you see microphones, if somebody says something different to what they said in a previous meeting or something like that at work, I will be able to. Really bad at typing something up and proofreading my own stuff, but really good at proofreading other people's. And I also sort of like, one of the things that I get asked to do quite a lot within a work environment is to do disciplinaries and investigations. And I think that's because of the fact that I will notice detail that others don't notice. And then that allows me to be able to sort of give a full report on a potential disciplinary situation. So I tend to notice details that others do not. Definitely agree for that one. I'd rather go to a library than a party. Right, so this one really annoys me, and I feel like they need to take it out, because yes and no and either. So would I rather go to a library than a party? Now, obviously parties, there's various different things that a party can be. So a dinner party with my family, I would enjoy as long as it was under a couple of hours. I would have to go through all of those processes that I said. But I would enjoy it. I actually really don't like libraries. I find them intimidating. I find them an absolute sensory nightmare. The lighting's usually bad. There's usually different smells in there. There's usually a lot of people in there, but being very quiet, but while also being very loud. So they won't talk, but they will be loud in the way they walk, putting a book back. It's very jarring. I find the whole experience of a library extremely jarring. So for me, definitely disagree. But I think it's actually trying to get you to say yes, you'd rather go to a library than a party. Well, no, because the sensory issues in a library are worse for me than what it would be at a party. I can prep for a party and deal with things, and I can go and hide away. If I'm going to a library, I'm going there for a reason, so I'm going to have to stay within the library capacity. Whereas a party, there may not be a reason for going, and I can probably get out of it as well. So this to me feels a lot harsher as a place to go than a party. I don't like parties. I find making up stories easy. Now this one's complicated. So originally I kind of said I do. I'd slightly agree with this, but actually I don't. So I have to go through a really long process for me to be able to write fiction. So I do write fiction, and I love writing fiction, but I have to go through a really long process. And I don't actually find it easy. And it's actually what I like about writing fiction is the fact that I don't find it easy, because I find writing non-fiction extremely easy. I can just type and type and type and type. Whereas fiction, I really have to think about things, and I have to follow a process, and I have to really delve into things and research things for me to be accurate. So I definitely disagree to this. I don't find it easy. Actually, I'm going to say slightly disagree because I can do it. So definitely disagree would basically mean I couldn't do it. So I'm going to say slightly disagree because I do find it difficult, but I enjoy it being difficult. I find myself drawn more strongly to people than to things. So no, I don't. And I hated this question because I like people. I'm not a person who hates people. I don't dislike people in general. But I find people difficult, whereas I find things not difficult. And if you include animals in this, I mean, I don't really think of animals as things, but it's people and things. So I'm going to put animals in there. So that would be a definitely disagree on this one, because if it includes animals, I would spend all my time with animals and never humans if I could get away with it. And I do like my things. So I like playing The Sims. I like reading. I like things. I do like things. It doesn't mean I don't like people, but the answer is I find myself drawn more strongly to people rather than things, and that's not true. I find myself drawn to things. I have to force myself to go into a people situation. I tend to have very strong interests, which I get upset about if I cannot perceive. Absolutely. The Sims is a perfect example of that. Like I said before, I can play for 20 odd hours. If somebody tries to pull me away from that, I really don't like it. And it's the same with anything else. If I get my mind on the fact that I'm going to a theme park, I have to go on that date, and I would be really upset if there was a reason why I couldn't go. So definitely agree. I enjoy social chit chat. Absolutely not. I find it pointless. I find it tedious. I find it painful, horrible. Don't understand it. Don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing. I do it because I have to, and I can be quite good at masking in situations, but it is utterly draining, and I really, really don't like it. And I just see it as an absolutely pointless waste of my time. If I'm wasting my voice on something, you've wasting my voice. That's because I feel that chit chat's wasting my voice. If I'm going to use my voice on something, then for me it needs to be worth something, and just talking about the weather really isn't. When I talk, it isn't always easy for others to get a word in edgeways. I definitely agree. I monologue. I think I can't really answer it any other way than I monologue. I quite often repeat the same thing over and over again, which I think is a question that comes later on this. I definitely would say that this is me, and it absolutely frustrates the people around me. I'll talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. I talk at people. It's probably why these videos are rambling, and I'm hoping that will endear people at some point, and that people will really like hearing me ramble. But yeah, I definitely monologue. I'm fascinated by numbers. Already said this. Yeah, I will sit and create spreadsheets for fake companies that don't exist. I will say that this is what I want to do, and I'll research it, and I will do business planning for things that I know I'll never do. But I will create spreadsheets that will give me all of the information that I need. I've created spreadsheets that look at the numbers in the job that I do and separate everything out in a way that makes it so easy for me to be able to understand and interpret figures. So I absolutely love numbers. I think for me, again, that's obviously very stereotypically old school male autistic profile. For me, I just find numbers are a constant and something that is safe for me. They're never going to change. They're not complicated. I can't misinterpret them. So when I'm reading a story, I find it difficult to work out the character's intentions. Slightly agree with this one. So yeah, I struggle with it. So I struggle with understanding what somebody's going to do next in a storytelling situation. I can't necessarily think this is what the end result is for this person. But I quite like that, because it means I'm often surprised by what comes later in a story. And it also means that when I'm reading a book for a second time or a third time, I feel like I'm reading it again for the first time. Yeah, I know the storyline, but because I do struggle with understanding, and I struggle in life understanding what the people's intentions are. So it's just an extension of that, I suppose. I don't particularly enjoy reading fiction, so definitely disagree with this. I do enjoy reading fiction. I have noticed with it that I do sit and analyse fiction to a point of making it as real as possible, and making it non-fiction in my head, and linking it to to real world examples of things. So something like Battlestar Galactica, That isn't reading. So Wicked. I've been reading the Wicked Years series, which is a prequel to The Wizard of Oz, and it tells the story of the Wicked Witch of the West and various other characters. So that is very political. So I like linking in where that is politically and historically. So yeah, when I say that I like fiction, but I like the fact that it's links to reality. It's that kind of thing. I like linking fiction to reality and sort of trying to get what the author was meaning. So I love reading fiction, but probably read it differently to maybe the person that's not neurodivergent. I find it hard to make new friends. Definitely agree. I have one friend. And I've pretty much stayed with having one friend for most of my life. It hasn't necessarily been the same friend, but I don't really like having multiple friends. I struggle with it. I struggle with struggling with people's intentions, but I struggle to keep friendships going. I don't really like meeting new people. I don't consider people that I meet as friends generally until much later. It takes a lot for me to consider somebody an actual friend. I both find it hard. I find it unnecessary, and I'm unable to sustain friendships very well anyway. So, and I don't really have the inclination. I'm quite happy on my own. So yeah. I notice patterns in things all the time. Yeah, I would say definitely agree to that. So again, with numbers, so seeing patterns in that, but I can also see patterns in people's. So in TV shows and things like that are quite complex, I'll see patterns maybe that other people won't see, or things that are open to interpretation. So Doctor Who's last series was very open to interpretation. And I sat and theorised throughout the series. I've sat for the last few months theorising over and over again with my best friend about it, to the point where I think I'm even annoying him now with the potential theories. But then I also see patterns in things like trees and roof tiles, and I'm just looking out of my window at the moment. That's the reason, and curtains and stuff like that. So not necessarily the patterns that have been put on it, but the patterns in which something sits. So, and I see patterns in water and all sorts of things. So yeah, I definitely see patterns. I'm very visual in that respect. Another one that's similar to the one around libraries and parties. So I think here there would be an assumption that you would want to go to a museum. And again, I am atypical here because I would prefer to go to a theatre. It would very much depend on what it was going to go and watch, who it was with, when it was, how well planned it was to go there. If it was something like The Lion King, or like when I went to a small theatre relatively recently last year, I think, where that is relatively recent for me going out, by the way, was Discworld's Mort was done in a local amateur dramatics theatre, and it was really, really good. I loved going there. Museums, for the same reason as libraries, I find sensory overload. I really want to see everything, and there's too much for me to see. Lighting's usually bad, and there's a lot more people walking around. Whereas at a theatre, you sit down, you face the front. So definitely would prefer to go to a theatre with correct planning. So I would rather go to a theatre. So definitely agree to that one. I'd rather go to it. Yeah. It does not upset me if my daily routine is disturbed. Definitely disagree. Absolutely, you disturb any of my daily routine that I have in place. It's a quite loose routine. It is and it isn't. So, but if I was pulled away from my morning routine, and this has happened, relatively recently when I was at work, I was pulled out of my morning routine and I couldn't leave for another hour because I had to go back through that original routine again. So I can't. If I've set a routine, I need to follow that routine. Otherwise, I get very, very, very distressed by it, and there's a likelihood of a meltdown or a shutdown in that situation. I frequently find that I don't know how to keep a conversation going. Definitely agree. So conversations quite often will just come to an abrupt end with me, and it'll often be that somebody's answered something or said something about what they want to say. I just think, oh, you said what you want to say, and my answer will be great, okay. And quite often I can tell afterwards. I've actually sat there for sort of 10 minutes and then gone with the person I live with, or with my mum. I sat there and gone, I should have asked another question about that, shouldn't I? And so I basically don't know whether I should be asking another question, whether I should just leave it, or whether I should move on. I struggle to think of anything. If I feel the topic's ended, I feel like I struggle to be able to change the topic unless I'm talking to my best friend, who, again, as I've said many times, is also neurodivergent, where we bounce so much in a conversation, we never finish one subject. Because I was thinking about this the other day. We never seem to finish one subject, a one long conversation, and it end. We're having multiple different conversations at the same time. Therefore, some of those conversations tail off and end, or they do end, but we've already started a conversation somewhere else we can go back to. So if we've got 10 different conversations on the go, one will end and we won't even notice that it has, and we can pick up that conversation again when we see each other again. So I frequently find it is that it's definitely clear at sort of like at work, and when it's not a special interest, or it's not something I'm hyper focused on, or something that's really interesting to me, or something that's happening at the moment that's apparent to me and means something to me. I definitely can't keep the conversation going on. Other people have to keep it going on for me. I have to ask more questions, and I even struggle then quite often. So, we're more than halfway through. This video is going to be very long. I apologise. I find it easy to read between the lines when someone is talking to me. Slightly disagree, because I can sometimes. I struggle with it. I do really, really struggle with it. Again, with the intentions thing, it's very similar to that. I do take people at face value most of the time, but I can pick up on people that I know that they're not quite telling me the truth. So whereas other people, like people at work, I struggle with, because I don't know them in an intimate way. I don't know them in sort of a, I'm also not seeing when I know they're lying to other people, or that they've not quite told somebody something and I know that that's not what it is that they want to say, because I've had a conversation with them previously. So, like, for instance, the person I live with could be talking to his mum and not be quite telling his mum everything, because, we don't tell everybody everything. And I know that he's done that, so I kind of know what he looks like, or wording that he might do in that situation. So I can read in between the lines if I know the person well enough to read in between the lines, but I certainly can't for anybody that I don't know really, really well. And I'm talking living with somebody for 5 years before I even got to that point of understanding that with him. So so I'd say slightly disagree. It's probably a definitely disagree, but because of the fact that I can do it with some people, I'm just going to put slightly disagree. 28. I usually concentrate more on the whole picture rather than small details. So this one was a really complicated one for me, and it was another one where I had to ask my work colleagues, because I thought I did focus on concentrate on the whole picture. I don't, and I now understand that I don't. What I do is I see the whole picture at first, and then I go into the minute details. So I go, I am a bottom up thinker, but I look at what the overall strategy is that you want to do in the first place, spend very little time on that, and then go into down to the bottom and start working up from there. Breaking everything apart and starting again is basically what I do. So I don't look at the big picture, because I'm not looking at what those things are going to do to the bigger picture. So I definitely disagree. I don't look at the whole picture. I do look at the detail, and can get quite stuck on that small detail. It's why things can take me 6 to 12 months to do, whereas another person might only take a month. But theirs won't have taken into a lot of things into account that mine would have. So swings and roundabouts, maybe half the amount of time that I'm doing on it, and not ruminate quite as much. So yeah, definitely disagree to that. I don't focus on the whole picture. I'm not very good at remembering phone numbers. Well, this is if you would have asked me this when I was 14 years old, I could remember every single person in my life's telephone number off by heart. Could have told you it forwards, backwards. So I have to say, slightly disagree. Because I think if I was still having to remember telephone numbers, I would, because there are 4 telephone numbers that I need, that I know that I may need in an emergency, and I can remember them. And I'd be able to remember them quickly if they've changed, because one of them has changed recently, but I can still remember it. I've remembered it very quickly. So I'm saying slightly disagree, because I don't need to remember phone numbers anymore. There's no requirement really for many people to remember numbers. What I can do is remember my sales figures for the last 6 months, week on week, for 10 different shops. So I would say that would be a very, very similar thing. So it might really should be a definitely disagree, but I'm just going to put slightly disagree because it's specific to phone numbers. Again, this needs to really be changed to I can remember numbers in a certain way, or I can remember information that's relevant to me. Yeah, it's not. I think it's a bad question. It's another one that's very male orientated, the very male sort of autism profile orientated. 30. I don't usually notice small changes in a situation or a person's appearance. Slightly disagree to that. So yeah, I do. A person's appearance, quite often, yes, I will. Small changes to a situation, definitely. But I can also miss things as well. So that's why I'm saying slightly disagree, because I can also miss things if I'm stressed or panicked. I can miss small changes. I can miss big changes. I can miss a lot of stuff. But on the whole, I do notice small changes in situations, and I can just if something moves during a meeting that I'm having, I will see that that somebody's picked up the post-it notes and moved them somewhere else. So or if somebody's moved chairs, I'll know. If I've gone to the toilet and come back and they've moved chairs, I'll see. I know how to tell if someone is listening to me. If someone listening to me. So I'll start that again. I know how to tell if someone listening to me is getting bored. Definitely disagree. No, slightly disagree. Again, this one comes down to how well I know the person. So also, I can tell whether I can stop myself from talking is a different matter. But I can tell with people that are close to me, but I probably won't stop talking. People who aren't close to me, I'm not going to remember and carry on talking. So the end result's still the same. I carry on talking. But yeah, with the person I live with, or my mum, quite often I see, but I usually see it quite late, to the point of it being more than bored and just kind of frustrated and can you shut up? So again, probably definitely disagree, but I'm going to put slightly disagree. I find it easy to do more than one thing at once. Definitely disagree. There's absolutely no way that I can do I can do more than one thing at once. Within reason, obviously, there's certain things that you can do automatically. I can listen to music and type, for instance, but I couldn't talk and type, or talk and do. So yeah, I see this more of two tasks at once rather than something that's passive. So for me, listening to something is passive, as long as it's not something that's annoying. But yeah, I definitely can't multitask anyway. When I talk on the phone, I'm not sure when it's my turn to talk. Definitely agree. I am constantly talking over people on the phone. I have somebody who I work with who is self-diagnosed autistic. I would agree with her self-diagnosis, and we just never get anywhere because of when we're talking on the phone. We have to go on a video call, really, because then we know and can see some social cues. We just keep talking over each other and don't hear anything the other person says, and neither of us really like speaking on the phone, so want to get over and done with as quickly as possible. So yeah, definitely this is a definite for me. I enjoy doing things spontaneously. So this one is a bit of a difficult one for me because I have ADHD. I do things spontaneously, but I very quickly regret it. So I will put slightly disagree to this, and I mean, it is definitely disagree generally, but I can't in good conscience say definitely disagree when I sometimes create that spontaneity, but I regret that spontaneity pretty much as soon as it's happened, and it's not me, it's the ADHD. I don't enjoy it, but I'm going to say slightly disagree. I'm often the last to understand the point of a joke. Definitely agree. That's quite common. I have a sense of humour. And I love comedy shows and stuff like that. But that said, I don't get on the nose jokes. So and I really struggle to get jokes that are around me. So definitely agree. I'm quite often the last person to understand it, unless it's an inside joke between me and my friend who we understand things. It needs to be a pre-understanding of the joke. I find it easy to work out what someone is thinking or feeling just by looking at their face. Definitely disagree. I have no idea what anybody's thinking. I constantly think everybody around me is angry, and ask everybody if they're okay all the time. And pretty much most of the time they say they are. I think sometimes they obviously, probably don't say they are when they're not. But I think I'm usually wrong about that. But my go-to is that if somebody is not smiling profusely, then that person's upset. So, and that obviously isn't the case. It's never the case. I think people are either happy or sad, and there's no in between. If there's an interruption, I can switch back to what I was doing very quickly. Definitely disagree. It can take me an hour to get back to work if somebody jars me out of doing something at work. So, absolutely not. It feels like a physical barrier. I did a transitions video previously, a short, and in that I say it's as if there's a brick wall there, and I can't transition back, and it can't transition out of a room or to do something. And this is similar. Once I've been pulled out of it, transitioning back into working or doing whatever it was is an absolute nightmare, and can sometimes just knock me off for the whole day. So I'm good at social chit chat. We've already had that one, so definitely disagree. I neither enjoy it nor I'm good at it. People often tell me that I keep going on and on about the same thing. Definitely agree. I do. I ruminate. I continually will talk about the same thing over and over and over again until I've processed it, and then talking it to death is probably not even enough. I've talked it to death, buried it, dug it back up. It's been reincarnated. It's died, and I've talked it to death again, and I've reburied it. So it's, yeah, I can go on and on and on, and it's a frustration for everybody around me and myself at times. When I was young, I used to enjoy playing games involving pretending with other children. Slightly disagree. So I used to do it. I used to enjoy it, but as long as it was under my any play needed to be under my supervision and had to be done the way that I felt that it needed to be done, and it was also very literal play. So it would be very, this is happening. This car goes here to here. This Barbie is walking down the street. There was no real imaginative play, and it was pretending, but pretending within the realms of it not really being completely. Unless I was on my own, I pretended a lot on my own, but not with other children. I like to collect information about categories of things. Definitely agree. That's been the case across the board. The Sims is collecting a category of things. I have loads of Sims packs that I will never use, but I need to have the full lot of them. And if I buy one book in a series, I have to buy all of them. I had a geology set that I bought, Goosebumps books, when I was younger. I mind, body, spirit at one point. I was very into mind, body, spirit stuff and spiritualism, and I needed all of those. So yeah, and then I also look at, like I said before, historic facts and things like that. So yeah, I do collect categories of things and facts. I find it difficult to imagine what it would be like to be somebody else. So I find it difficult to imagine what it would be like to be someone else. Definitely disagree. Definitely agree. I really struggle with. I obviously understand other people are people, and I just really struggle to put myself in other people's shoes. I try my best to do it, but there's something just ever so slightly off with my understanding of the fact that other people are fully formed living beings. It's not in a negative, psychopathic sort of way, because it doesn't mean I do anything nasty towards them. It's just I fail to understand it. I fail to see, but then I fail to understand my own self. I don't see, I don't feel that I understand myself, so how can I understand other people? So that could come with time as I become to understand myself more and my autism more. I like to plan any activity I participate in carefully, absolutely, to the annoyance of everyone around me. I need to know when we're going to be going somewhere, what time we're going to set off, which will be 2 or 3 hours earlier than we actually need to. What we're going to do during the day. I will watch videos of it if there's stuff that I can watch videos on to sort of make myself feel like I know the place before I go there. All of that good stuff. I enjoy social occasions. Definitely disagree. I do not enjoy social situations at all. Like I say, I feel I benefit from them after I've gone, but I absolutely hate going to them. I find it difficult to work out people's intentions. Definitely agree. I never know what somebody's intentions are. New situations make me anxious. Definitely agree. I really don't like being put into a new situation. It's very. I really, really do not like being put into new situations. And meeting new people. I enjoy meeting new people. Definitely not. As I said, with making new friends, I don't really have the inclination to meet new people. I'm a good diplomat. Yep, I would say that quite often. I would say I am quite a good diplomat. I feel I can see the sides of things, unless I'm really in the middle of something myself. But if it's two different people, and from a diplomacy situation, I would say that it's when you're looking at two other parties and trying to help them through something rather than myself. If it's not helping myself, then it's fine. I can't help myself, but I can help others. I'm not very good at remembering people's date of birth. Weirdly, when I said I'm fascinated with birth, I do really struggle with this. So I would definitely agree with this. I'm not very good at remembering people's date of birth. I really, really struggle with it. I remember my mum's and I remember the person I lived with. Everybody else, and my best friend as a child, because hers was the day before mine, and a friend that I had at school as well. So there was three of us, and there was one that was on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. So that's not because I'm remembering their date of birth. It's because they're right next to mine. But I do really struggle with remembering date of birth. I find it easy to play games with children that involve pretending. Well, I slightly agree with this. I do find it easy to do because I'm able to put myself into that situation. I wouldn't say I'm probably very good at it, but I find it easy and I enjoy doing it because I enjoy, if that child is there, if I'm with a child, it's going to be a child of somebody that I care about, or so it's going to be somebody that I'm never going to be in a situation where it's a child of somebody that I don't know, or a child of somebody that I don't feel close to. It's going to be a family member or a friend. So I want to make sure that child is enjoying that experience of playing, so I can pretend in those situations. So I do find it easy. I don't struggle with it. It's not. So I actually might say definitely agree to that. Actually, no, I'm going to say slightly agree because I am pretending to pretend. I'm not finding it easy. I suppose the easiest of things. So that's all 50 questions. Let's get my score. 44, which has actually gone down from when I got my previous autism, my actual autism assessment. It's gone down by 3 since then. I mean, it's still relatively high. It's over 30, so therefore would warrant a autism assessment. But it's interesting that that's gone down, and I think it might have gone down from maybe saying that the diplomat question, I think, probably did play a part in that, because I feel like I answered that I wasn't a very good diplomat, but I've actually realised I can be. But I always thought that I'm not, because I think I probably thought of the word diplomat in a different way, that it was if I was involved in the situation, whereas I feel more on reflection that's what that means. No, you don't need to be involved in the situation, but you need to help them. You need to be able to help two other parties, at least 2 or 3 other parties. So, 44, that, like I say, would initiate an autism assessment request, I suppose. I've really enjoyed this, so I would be interested definitely to see what people think of it. I'm not going to bother putting my face big on the screen because I am sweaty and my executive function, like I say, is terrible, and I'd rather just stay small, if I'm honest with you. I really hope other people have enjoyed that you've taken stuff away from it, and that maybe it's just been a bit of a interesting way to listen to some idiot talk about his autism, and how he looked at assessments. But my suggestion for people who are in the process, go through this a few times, do it on your own, but also do it with other people, because they'll be able to feed information back to you. You'll be able to ask questions. You'll be able to ask, what do you think about this? How do you feel about it? What do you think about my what do you think about where do you think I should answer this question? So it allows you to be able to have more insight into it and put more context to it for your life before you take the official assessment. And it's not as much of a, oh my god, that's a big shock, and you can rush answers. And as you've seen here, there's a 3-point differential between this and the beginning of August for me. There's been a 3-point differential, and I would imagine that I mean, it's nominal, isn't it? 3 points. It could be that I've checked it slightly but definitely previously. So it's quite an interesting that I've dropped 3 points, which is great. And maybe having the diagnosis has actually helped me a lot with understanding my autistic traits a little bit more and not seeing them as negatively, maybe. So yeah. I hope you enjoyed. If you could like, comment and subscribe, share as well if you want to share this with other people, but really would love it if people could subscribe, because I'm very low on numbers with the subscriptions. Getting some good sort of views, but not many people subscribing, which probably means you don't want to watch me, which is fair enough. But if you could, I would be eternally grateful. Thank you so much. I hope I haven't bored you too much, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye!